Welcome to today's chilling tale, The Curse of Blackwood Manor. Blackwood Manor stood isolated on a windswept cliff overlooking the restless sea. Its Gothic architecture with towering spires and darkened windows gave it an ominous presence. The villagers of Blackwood spoke in hushed tones about the manor, sharing tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained disappearances. On a stormy evening, Jonathan Harker, a historian with a fascination for the paranormal, arrived in the village to investigate the manor's dark history. As his carriage approached the manor, the howling wind seemed to whisper warnings, and the flickering lanterns cast eerie shadows. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the manor's menacing silhouette, sending shivers down Jonathan's spine. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement, knowing he was about to uncover secrets long buried in darkness. Jonathan was welcomed by the manor's caretaker, an elderly woman named Mrs. Whitmore, whose wrinkled face bore a perpetual look of unease. Her voice trembled as she spoke, warning Jonathan of the manor's sinister past. That night, as thunder rumbled and lightning flashed, Jonathan lay awake in his room, feeling the weight of the manor's oppressive atmosphere. He heard faint whispers and the sound of footsteps echoing through the empty halls, though he knew he was alone. Determined to uncover the truth, he ventured into the dark corridors, guided by the flickering light of his candle. Shadows danced on the walls, and a cold draft sent shivers down his spine. Each creak of the floorboards and distant murmur amplified his growing sense of dread. Jonathan's exploration led him to a hidden door behind an ancient tapestry depicting a long-forgotten battle. With a creak, the door opened to reveal a secret room filled with dusty tomes and occult artifacts. At the center of the room was a large leather-bound book with a blood-red cover titled The Curse of Blackwood. As Jonathan opened the book, a chilling draft swept through the room, extinguishing his candle and plunging him into darkness. The air grew cold, and he felt an unseen presence watching him, causing the hairs on the back of his neck to stand up. He fumbled for a match, his hands shaking, and when he finally struck a light, the ghostly figure of a woman appeared momentarily in the corner, her eyes filled with sorrow and warning. By the light of a newfound candle, Jonathan read about the manor's grim history. The book recounted the tale of Lord William Blackwood, who had dabbled in dark arts and summoned a malevolent spirit to gain eternal life. The ritual went awry, cursing the manor and all its inhabitants. The spirit, bound to the manor, preyed on the souls of those who ventured inside. Jonathan realized that the whispers he had heard were the tormented souls of past victims. The walls seemed to close in around him as the weight of the manor's dark past became palpable. As he read further, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and he could see his breath misting in the air. The ghostly woman appeared again, this time closer, mouthing silent words he couldn't understand. As the days passed, Jonathan noticed Mrs. A. Whitmore behaving increasingly erratically. One evening, she confided in him, revealing that she was the last descendant of Lord Blackwood. She had been trying to break the curse for decades, but had failed each time. Her eyes filled with tears, she begged Jonathan to help her free the manor from its dark fate. Together, they devised a plan to perform a counter-ritual described in the book. Jonathan felt a sense of urgency and dread, knowing that their time was running out. As they prepared, eerie occurrences intensified. The walls seemed to whisper, and shadows flickered ominously. Mrs. Whitmore shared stories of previous failed attempts, each ending in tragedy, increasing Jonathan's resolve to succeed where others had failed. On the night of the ritual, the manor was engulfed in an unnatural darkness. Jonathan and Mrs. Whitmore gathered in the secret room, surrounded by candles and arcane symbols. As they began the incantation, the temperature plummeted, and the air was filled with an eerie wailing. The spirit, a ghastly figure with hollow eyes and a skeletal frame, appeared, its presence overwhelming and terrifying. The ground trembled, and objects flew around the room as the spirit tried to stop them. Jonathan's voice wavered, but he pressed on, feeling the spirit's cold breath on his neck. The candles flickered violently, and shadows twisted and writhed on the walls as if alive. Mrs. Whitmore's voice joined in, strong and unwavering, her determination fueling Jonathan's own. With steely determination, Jonathan continued the incantation, his voice rising above the chaos. The spirit lunged at him, its cold, spectral hand closing around his throat. Jonathan gasped for breath, but Mrs. Whitmore, summoning all her strength, joined in the chant, her voice steady and powerful. The spirit recoiled, shrieking in agony as the words of the ritual began to take effect. A blinding light filled the room, and the spirit dissolved into nothingness. The manor shook as the curse was lifted, and a sense of peace began to settle over the house. The violent tremors subsided, and a profound silence fell, broken only by their ragged breaths. As dawn broke, the manor seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The oppressive atmosphere lifted and sunlight streamed through the windows for the first time in centuries. Jonathan and Mrs. Whitmore, exhausted but victorious, stood in the now peaceful secret room. The curse had been broken, and the tormented souls were finally at rest. Mrs. Whitmore, freed from her family's dark legacy, thanked Jonathan with tears of gratitude. The manor, once a place of dread, now felt like a home again. They walked through the sunlit halls, now filled with warmth and hope, feeling the manor's transformation in every step. Jonathan left Blackwood Manor, may the weight of its dark history lifted from his shoulders. The villagers, sensing the change, came to embrace him as a hero. As he departed, he couldn't help but look back at the manor, now a symbol of resilience and redemption. Jonathan knew he would write about this experience, sharing the tale of Blackwood Manor and its chilling curse, ensuring that its lessons would never be forgotten. He walked away with a sense of accomplishment, ready to share his story with the world. The once foreboding manor now stood as a beacon of hope and testament to the power of courage and perseverance.